Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Health Babes podcast. We're your hosts, Dr. Becky Campbell and Dr. Krystal Hohn. Today, we're going to answer your questions. We got some really good questions on Instagram about hormones. So we're going to be going over all of those. And before we do, I want to read this really good review that we just got. We just love this. We really, really appreciate when anyone goes out of their way to leave a review because it really helps people to know what podcasts that they'd like. So if you have a minute and you love our podcast, feel free to leave a review as well. So this one is by Christy Listens, and it says, a must listen for all women. I adore this podcast. I'm 42 and have been on an up and down health journey for as long as I can remember. This podcast covers it all. It's so well balanced. Hormones, sex, weight training, nutrition, etc. In addition, they are down to earth, relatable, and extremely knowledgeable. The best part is there is a course which allows you to take on your journey yourself that they offer through their site, and that she has been binging it since she found it last week. So thank you so much for leaving that review.
Yes, it's so helpful and it keeps us going, because when you're in the trenches for so long, we're all human and it's good to get that feedback and we appreciate the love.
Yes. And when your kids go back to school this week and you have been busting your butt, it does help. Okay, so let's jump in. We're going to go through the questions. So the first question was from Nikki 1436. So she asked how estrogen dominance impacts histamine intolerance. So there's actually a really big connection. So histamine and estrogen, they attach to the same receptors. These receptors are called the H1 receptor sites on the mast cell. So because of this, estrogen, it causes the release. So when estrogen binds to the H1 receptor, it will cause a release of histamine from the mast cells. And this is present in the reproductive organ. So the more estrogen you have, the more histamine will be released, but also vice versa. So they both do this to each other. And you end up in this like vicious cycle of excess estrogen, excess histamine, and over and over and over. So this is why you'll see a lot of people who have histamine intolerance, meaning they can't break histamine down very well. So if you're listening and you've never heard of this, I guess I should kind of explain what this is a little bit. So histamine is a really important chemical that is released when there is, something that needs to be addressed from the immune system. So let's say there's a pathogen or an allergen that comes into the body. We have these cells called our mast cells. They're the first line of defense in our immune system. They'll release all these different inflammatory chemicals. That's their job, to cause inflammation, because we need that in that time. So histamine happens to be one of these. And then histamine gets broken down and everything goes back to the way it was before. Well, some people can't break histamine down very well. And there's various reasons why.
Right.
There's very many podcasts we've done on this topic. So I would really encourage you to go back and listen in our earlier podcast. We have a histamine 1, histamine 2 episode. You have
a lot of great resources on your Instagram.
On my Instagram, on my website. But there's also Beth O'Hara was on, who is really great with mast cell activation syndrome and histamine intolerance. And then Krystal and I have done many, many episodes on it. So anyway, there's different reasons why people don't break down histamine as well. And when you have excess histamine, then you're going to get symptomatic. You can get all sorts of symptoms. You can get anxiety, insomnia. So let's go from the top down. And then skin issues. We have a lot of mast cells in our skin. So you can get tons of, different types of dermatitis, any type of inflammatory skin issue. You can have sensitivities to foods. And then we have a lot of mast cells lining our gut. So you can have a lot of gastrointestinal issues. A lot of people complain of diarrhea. And that's what we saw a lot when we were working with people on this. And then even constipation, a lot of acid reflux, all those types of things. Fatigue, just all, you name it. It can be a symptom.
I mean, it really can.
Yeah, because of where our mast cells are. They're just everywhere. So there are different reasons why you don't break histamine down well. but there's also different reasons why you may be secreting more histamine. So this is one of them: estrogen dominance, making you produce more histamine. And then, like I was saying earlier, then also your estrogen's also going higher. So these two things can really work against each other. So we need estrogen. We just don't want too much estrogen in relation to progesterone.
Right.
So then I'm going to expand on that question a little bit to talk about progesterone, because progesterone is really important with this histamine picture. So progesterone helps suppress histamine release in the body. And so if you think about it, if you're estrogen dominant, your estrogen's higher than your progesterone, they're antagonistic of each other.
Right.
So the more estrogen you have, the lower progesterone you're going to have. So the progesterone helps suppress histamine release, and it also helps stabilize our mast cells, and it helps upregulate this enzyme DAO, which helps us to break down histamine. So basically, long story short, it helps us break down histamine.
Right.
So excess estrogen, low progesterone, you're going to be producing more or releasing more histamine, and you're not going to be able to break down that histamine as well if you're estrogen dominant. And we're going to go over ways to help metabolize estrogen better at the end.
Yeah.
So
you answered that great, Beck.
Thank you. I've said this a time or two. Okay, so let's go to the next question. And I want Krystal does such a great job with anything hormones. So why don't you do the next one?
Yeah. So Megan Brianna, she asked, can you have symptoms of low progesterone but still be ovulating? And the short answer is yes, absolutely. You can have, you're still ovulating. If your progesterone is lower, you can still, you're ovulating, but it's just lower, and you're going to have symptoms of that again. And Becky touched a little base on estrogen dominance too, right? So typically with low progesterone, you're going to see that anxiety, insomnia. You're going to even have those estrogen dominant type symptoms. So, tender breasts in that luteal phase, weight gain, skin issues, possibly from, that histamine buildup, with progesterone is lower. So when we start working on ovulation, you have to kind of peel back the layers and look at some of those root drivers. Okay, so what's causing progesterone to be lower, like sluggish ovulation, right? And you got to look at many things. You got to dive into how you're metabolizing your estrogen. You want to dive in and look at your thyroid health, your nutrient status, your stress. Are you sleeping? So all these things are going to impact your ovulation and your progesterone levels. So it's kind of a loaded question, right? There's so many things you can do to work on ovulation and to support those progesterone levels. But the short answer is absolutely. Your progesterone can be lower. You can have symptoms, of low progesterone even when you're still ovulating, so.
Do you want to expand a little and go over progesterone's role in ovulation?
Yeah, sure. So
some people might not even, realize what a luteal phase is, so.
Yeah, for sure. So we have four, we have basically like 3 phases in the menstrual cycle. So we have our follicular phase, which is, we have those first 2 weeks, those 4, like we're looking at a 28-day cycle, we have those first 2 weeks, and then around 14 days we ovulate. That's ovulation. And to produce progesterone, we need to ovulate. So we make progesterone in the luteal phase in the second half of our cycle. So, when she's asking about, can your progesterone be lower and still ovulate? Absolutely. But in order to make progesterone, you have to ovulate, right? Mm-hmm. And so did I answer it? Is that
so I think people may think if their progesterone's low, that they're not ovulating, and that is why it's low. And what we're saying is it's not necessarily the reason. Right. Yeah. Right. So you can definitely still be ovulating and have low progesterone. Yeah, for sure.
And you just got to peel back those layers. There's so many things that can contribute to low quality ovulation. That's kind of like how I like, so you got to just peel back the layers and look at all these areas. And this is why we love the functional testing. You dive into blood work, look at your blood sugar, look at your nutrient status, look at your stress, look at how you're metabolizing your hormones. There's so many factors to this to really help strong ovulation. But the answer is yes, you definitely can have low progesterone.
And a lot of the time it's because, your progesterone is low because of your estrogen being too high.
Yeah.
And what, a lot of people can do, and what they don't know, one of the main drivers of that can be xenoestrogens. So those chemical estrogens that come from our products and, using plastic and wearing fragrance and all those things that we've talked about a lot. So that's why there's this big craze on, use glass and, this product is paraben and phthalate free and all that stuff, because those things are driving estrogen high, driving down progesterone, and then people are feeling bad. So this is kind of another way to look at, why is your progesterone low? Well, it could very well be your environment.
And just to add to that too, you guys, with what Becky said about, xenoestrogens, you can also have lower estrogen, but estrogen dominant symptoms because of these xenoestrogens. And so these xenoestrogens can actually attach to those estrogen receptors and also cause low estrogen symptoms. So it's not always this dominant picture, right?
Yeah.
So this is why it's like, no matter what your hormonal picture looks like, you got to take care of the products that you're using, and you have to really just give your body this overhaul, because it's going to help everything. So really take that into consideration. We love the Skin Deep, right? Skin Deep EWG. Am I saying that right? The where you can look at
the app.
Yeah.
Think Dirty. I use Think
Yes.
Dirty. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's the EWG too, so these apps let you scan your products and then they give you a rating. So 0 to 10 on the toxicity scale. And then they break down if it's a 10 or whatever it is, what it is in there that is a problem and why. It's really cool.
It's great.
And, I remember when, and I won't say the name because I don't like to call people out like this, but I remember when, natural and all that was first really being marketed. And there was a line of, I bought their dish soap and their laundry soap and their hand soap, and it was marketed as natural, right? So I was super excited. I loved it. I thought, the smell was coming from essential oils, blah, blah, blah. I scanned it. It was a 10. And I was like, what?
Whoa.
It was the fragrance. So it was, you have to look into what is giving your product its smell. Is fragrance, because fragrance can literally take a pure, clean product and give it a high toxicity score simply because of the fragrance. So that's super important. I kind of went off on a tangent.
But, no, I love it. It's important. People need to know about that stuff. So those are great resources to look into the products that you're using, because we all should be focusing in that and eliminating a lot of this crap that we're surrounded by.
Yeah. And as you can, like, no one's saying, go get this app and get rid of everything you own. We know that's not realistic. So just do the best you can. But those are some great sources we like. Okay. So let's go on to, you talked about testing, and we love the Dutch test. So someone asked, Fitness by Jenny asked, what is the Dutch test and how is it different from standard blood work for hormones?
Yeah, so we absolutely love the Dutch test. And just a little caveat to this, using blood work for certain hormones and things, and we can touch base on that, is important too, right? When we're looking at specific things. But with the Dutch test, it's a dried urine test. And the reason why we love this test is because it's looking at an average of what your hormones are doing. And for those of you who don't know what's on a Dutch test, it's looking at a lot of your sex and adrenal hormones. So things like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, DHEAS, other androgen metabolites of DHEA. And I don't need to get into all those, but even things like melatonin. So it's very comprehensive. And it's looking at an average of what your hormones are doing, not just a snapshot, right, Beck?
Because they're so up and down all day.
Yes,
And it's why it can be tricky to do those specific hormones on blood.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And there's, with certain hormones specifically, especially for women, you want to look at progesterone and estrogen too at specific times because our hormones are everywhere. So timing of testing is very important too. And should we go into that a little bit too, Beck, right now?
Yes. So
Yeah.
Krystal Ising
Mhm.
asked how important, basically in a nutshell, her question was how important is the timing of testing? Like, is there a certain time of the month you take your Dutch test?
Yes. And this is different depending on, for men, women who are cycling, menopausal women. So for menopausal women, these are women who no longer have cycles, right? They're no longer cycling. And, typically what I like to see is a year, like 12 months not having a cycle, but sometimes that 12th month, you could get a cycle. So I like to see 2 years of no cycles to really be in menopause, because with working with patients throughout the years, I see so many different types of pictures. So you can test anytime. Menopausal women with a Dutch test, you can test anytime. Men, you can test anytime, which is great. If you want to test your testosterone, men, though, in blood work, test your free and total testosterone in the morning because that's when it's highest. But you're getting an average on a Dutch test. So that is, you can test anytime. For cycling or perimenopausal women, timing of testing, you want to do this 5 to 7 days after you ovulate. So Beck and I love the Aura Ring because it shows exactly when you're ovulating. You get to know your cycle. So I'll just use a typical 28-day cycle, even though you do not have to have that number, right? Anything from 24 to 35 days is a normal cycle. But using 28 days, this is usually days 19 to 21 that you would want to start your Dutch test, or just do 5 to 7 days after you ovulate if you start tracking your temperature. And the biggest thing is after ovulation, you're going to have an increase or a rise in your temperature until you start your cycle again.
Yeah.
So you just get to know your cycle. And the Dutch test is so great because it gives you so much information, but the timing of the testing is important if you're still cycling. So yeah, it's great, but you just got to do it right so that you get the best information. And the reason why is you don't want to test your progesterone levels, right? You don't have much progesterone in that in that follicular phase. You want to test in that luteal phase when you produce progesterone after you ovulate. So it's important.
The thing that always bothers me is when people get blood work done.
Yeah.
They bring us their blood work and their sex hormones are on there. And I'm like, well, where were you in your cycle? Like, did your doctor tell you when to take the test? No. Well, did your doctor, when reading the test, did they ask you where you were in your cycle? Because even on blood work, it will say if you were here, this is the range. If you were ovulating, this is the range. If you're, and they're not even looking. So that it is really important. If you don't have an Aura ring, so you don't know exactly when you're ovulating, you can use ovulation kits to help with that too.
You could take your temperature in the morning. I suggest doing this for a couple months to get to know it because it's not a huge increase and you want to stay in bed. So what you'll do is you'll take your temperature in the morning in bed. You'll have a little notepad, write it down, just get to know yourself. Don't get up and then take your temperature. You want to do it as soon as you get up. If I really like the basal body temperature, because sometimes working with patients, I've known the test strips get confusing and then they're like questioning and, but they are great. They can be helpful.
Yeah. And it is important to do it while you're still in bed. And that's why we like the Aura ring, because it just is doing it for you. And it tells you every day what your basal body temperature is. It's pretty cool. It's one of the reasons I got the Aura ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I know exactly what's going on all the time with my cycle. And I had an ablation. So a lot of you don't know, I had an uterine ablation because after each one of my kids, I bled. It was like a massacre in my pants. Like it was awful. So, and after I had Liam, which is my youngest, I was about to stick 2 tampons in one day, and I was like, this is where I draw the line.
Yeah.
And I was so anemic. I was passing out because I was losing so much blood. I mean, it was awful.
And
So
you were doing everything that you knew how to do with how we work with patients. And that's the biggest thing. If there's some takeaways you can get from these episodes, you guys, is there is a time and need for everything. Right. And so that was life-changing for you, Beck. Your
life-changing because I couldn't get enough iron. I couldn't hold on to it. I was so anemic. I was so weak, so dizzy. And with each one of my boys, the bleeding was getting heavier and I didn't know what to do. You know, it was scary. So, and then I remember one day I passed out at work and I was like, that's it, you know? So anyway, I chose to have an ablation and I have really not bled since. So I still have a cycle though. I just don't have a bunch of blood. So anyway, long story short, I don't always know when it's my bleed week. I don't know. Sometimes I do. I get like a little bit, but so a lot of times I don't know. And I do want to know where I am in my cycle. It is really important. It helps you know what type of working out you should do, what type of, how many carbs you should be eating, that type of stuff. There's a lot you can relate to it. So anyway, the Oura Ring really helped me because I really didn't know.
We literally compare data. We're in circles.
I know. We're in the yeah, you can like share with your friends and we're in the Krystal sent me, it tells you your steps. One day, Krystal's like, I have not stopped moving. And her steps were 18,000 and like 400 or something. And I was like,
not a normal day though, guys. Okay.
Yeah, it was excessive. Yeah. Normally, Krystal and I both get around like 13,000, maybe 15 if we're like really having a good day, maybe 10 if we're like, down a little. But anyway, she sent me and I was like 18,000. I looked at mine. I was at like 8,000 and I was like, so I go, I'm going to have to go for like the longest walk ever. So I sent her back as her same screenshot and I was like, I did it.
Love you. But it's so true. And it's interesting too, because on the Oura Ring, and I've noticed this with myself, like when my steps are really high, or if I've pushed myself above like the normal that we do, your readiness score is a little low. You better take it easy, lady. It's wild.
And it's cool
to know your body.
Yeah. And and we are not associated, just so you guys know, with the Oura Ring at all. We don't get paid to talk about them. We just like you guys to know what works for us. So we love it. But anyway, it tells you, like, it gives you a score, how ready you are, like how well you slept, your HRV balance, like all that stuff comes into play. And if your readiness score is low, it will say, like, take it easy today, maybe go for a walk, but don't do anything crazy. So it's just really cool.
I know.
Free plug for Oura Ring.
To know your cycles, ladies, and your sleep score.
And your steps. Okay, so this is also crystallizing. I thought that was funny. She has a unique Instagram handle. Okay, so how to know if my symptoms are mast cell activation syndrome, blood sugar imbalance, or hormone related. Well, they can all feel the same.
I mean, we could talk about this all day.
They can all drive each other. I can definitely tell you that. So I have mast cell activation syndrome. So mast cell activation syndrome is basically when those mast cells we were talking about earlier are really sensitive. And they will release those inflammatory chemicals at times where maybe there is not a threat, so you're just releasing a lot of histamine and other inflammatory chemicals. So you tend to be really sensitive. But one great way to know if you have mast cell, and it's not a diagnosis, but it's just a good thing to go, that's probably what I'm dealing with. If you have unexplained symptoms in 3 or more systems of the body, so headaches or insomnia, something up here, brain, skin issues, and digestive issues, you're probably dealing with something like this. And especially if you're a sensitive person, you're very sensitive to things. You could be fine. A person with perfume walks by you and you just feel terrible. Like those are kind of just some little hints. So blood sugar imbalance is going to make you feel like a lot of highs and lows, So for me, I struggled with blood sugar going low, and I still really have to eat for my blood sugar. And I'm wearing right now a continuous glucose monitor. I love this company, Levels, but so I'm wearing this monitor because I do tend to run a little lower, and I want to know, because sometimes when you go low, you can get a little anxiety, you start to get and then knowing if you don't know you have food with you, you can really get panicky.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to see, is this in my head? Am I just thinking my blood sugar's low, or is it going low? So it's really cool because it actually tells you.
Yeah.
So those are kind of things that you can tell. You have it's like you can feel very moody. You can feel very just up and down, up and down. That's a very blood sugar related. You can feel very fatigued after you eat in certain foods. You can feel very fatigued if you haven't eaten in a while, very irritable, very edgy, very anxious. So that kind of thing, if you're wondering if your blood sugar is the issue, and if you're wondering how often you should eat, because I don't care what anybody says, everyone is different. Not everybody should be doing intermittent fasting, and not everybody should be eating often. It depends on the person. I am one of those people who is not very good at intermittent fasting. I need to eat more frequently, and I can't eat a lot at once. I can't. I've tried. I cannot.
You really have. You've played with.
Yeah. You've seen me. I try to eat more once to take me a little longer. I just can't. So I just eat more often, and it's just what works for me.
Yeah.
So, anyway, you can take your blood sugar with a
glucose.
You can buy one from the store, or you can, get something like the Levels continuous glucose monitor, and that will help you really look at yourself all the time. And while you're sleeping, I mean, sometimes I have to eat protein before bed because my blood sugar will drop in the middle of the night and it will wake me up. So that's more blood sugar.
Yeah.
And also insulin provokes estrogen. So insulin, if your blood sugar is going high and you're pushing out a bunch of insulin to try to drive that blood sugar down, that's going to provoke estrogen. So that can actually make you release more estrogen. So then you can have that causing you to release more histamine.
It's just a domino effect.
Yeah. And it really is. And then if you don't have mast cell activation syndrome and you don't have any blood sugar issues, hormone issues can feel
like everything.
A lot of different things. I mean, there's so many symptoms, but I would say, unexplained weight gain could be a really telltale sign of a hormone issue.
Anxiety, fatigue,
brain fog, fatigue, irritability, but an irritability that's not related to the, how often you're eating and that type of thing. So really they all go together, but if you don't have mast cell activation syndrome, the blood sugar issue and the hormone issue do not feel the same as mast cell. In other words, you can have blood sugar issues and hormone issues and feel terrible, but it doesn't mean that you have mast cell activation syndrome.
Right. And with MCAS, if you really, people who are going through it and listening, obviously, and if you've worked with Beck in the practice, you know that to calm those mast cells, you have to look at all these areas.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of these things can drive our mast cells. So it's really about peeling back the layers and figuring out what is driving what in your body. This is why functional testing is so important, because if you go off symptoms alone, it's going to drive you cuckoo, is what it's going to, It is.
It is. And also the way you balance, or the way you support your mast cells, is by balancing blood sugar and hormones. So,
and these hormones. So it's like we could go in circles because this drives this. And so it's just figuring out what's driving what in your body and then peeling back the layers and working on it. So, but you answered that beautifully, Beck, as always.
Thanks, Krystal. So complimentary today.
I know.
Let's
Okay.
do, okay. Let's do this. Karen ZZ asked, what are the
Mhm.
best ways to detox estrogen? So I
Mhm.
thought it'd be great if you could explain estrogen metabolism phase 1, 2, and 3.
Yes. Now this is a very, very loaded question because it's a big one. And I do go into big detail about all the different things and ways you can support in our Dutch course, which is great. So if you really want like all the nitty gritty, that's where you want to go. But the biggest thing to understand is this is for men, this is for women. When we make estrogen, we need to break it down and metabolize it in the body. And then we need to clear it, right? We need to clear it, get rid of it so that we're constantly making it, getting rid of it, constantly making it, getting rid of it. And how we do that is through various different phases. We have 3 phases of estrogen metabolism. The first 2 phases, this is what you can see on a Dutch test. Okay. And this primarily happens in the liver. So in phase 1, should I get into the different
Yeah.
types? You want me to? Okay. So we have a 2 pathway, a 4, and a 16 pathway. This is basically, we're trying to make estrogen go from fat soluble to water soluble so we can poop it out, sweat it out, pee it out, right? And so this is just a part of how we're metabolizing. We want to predominantly favor that 2 pathway because it's most protective, it's the least carcinogenic, it's the least proliferative pathway. So we want to favor most of it, but we do have a blend, right? It's normal to have a blend of all 3 pathways when we're
The
breaking down.
OH,
Yep.
just to add that on, because some
Yeah.
people, you'll see it as 2 OH, 4 OH,
4-OH.
16 OH.
Yes. Yes. So the 4 pathway is more carcinogenic. It's more inflammatory, right? The 16 pathway is more proliferative. So this is where you can, if you're higher in 16 pathway, typically I can see a lot of breast tenderness, PMS symptoms, lots of,
Fibroids
yes,
sometimes. Yeah.
fibroids, cysts, lots of xenoestrogens can sit in that 16 pathway too. So if you run a Dutch test on yourself and you see that you're high in 4 and 16, you got to stay away from them endocrine disruptors. So there's a lot you can do to support phase 1. And this is, you can even add into back if you feel I'm missing anything. But some of the things that you really want to do to help your body favor that 2-OH pathway is a lot in the foods that we eat.
Mhm.
So cruciferous vegetables, right? And getting in cruciferous, getting in broccoli sprouts, so lots of sprouts, has these different compounds in it. So sulforaphane, we'll just talk about sulforaphane a little bit, which is in sprouts. You can take sulforaphane to really help your body favor that 2-OH pathway. And we really like sulforaphane because it's safe. It's safe.
Yeah. For
And
just about anybody,
I
unless,
really do feel that way. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not gonna make estrogen go low.
Lower.
It's just gonna help
Exactly.
you metabolize it properly. So
Yeah.
really, if we say you're going in blind and you haven't done a Dutch test and people want to take some, DIM,
To help.
usually because they think, oh my, I must be estrogen dominant, but you might not be, number
Yeah.
one, or you may be estrogen dominant, but your estrogen's still low. It's just higher than progesterone. So you wouldn't want to take something that would actually lower estrogen necessarily. You just want to metabolize it right. So we do love sulforaphane. I take it. You take
Me
it
too.
too, right? Yeah, we
Every
both
day.
take it. Mhm.
It's phenomenal and it's helpful for that phase 2. So once we're metabolizing that estrogen down phase 1, we need to continue that process, right? So that we can continue to clear it out of the body. And in that phase 2, sulforaphane also helps that. But to get you methylating, right, that estrogen better, and we do this through our COMT gene, magnesium is excellent at this.
Mhm.
Very, very helpful for the COMT gene. Really good methylated B vitamins. Just get to know your body though. I don't like everybody just to blindly take B vitamins because some
You
people
might
feel
not
like
need them.
crap on them and you might not need them, right?
Yeah. And if
There's
you
a,
feel real anxious when you take
yeah,
B vitamins, you're not ready for that.
right,
Yeah.
right. And this is
And
this
it's
is
common. It's
it
very
is.
common.
We
Yeah.
learned that our
Yeah.
patients teach
And
us.
we've had
Yes.
that issue. We have been there. So you
Yeah.
got to watch to see how you respond. So this is also just side note, if you're doing it with
Mhm.
supplements, why you start only one new supplement
Right.
each time you start a supplement. So like do a supplement, do it a lower dose the first day, the next day add to it. And if you feel fine, you're good with that supplement and you can move on to another one and
Yeah.
keep it. You keep that one that you're good with, you add the next one, but you never would go, I'm going to try B vitamins and sulforaphane together for the first time in one day. You don't do that because then you wouldn't know if you had an issue, which one it was.
And you don't know how you feel on it's just important to go slow with anything that you're
Mm-hmm.
trying. I mean, just be safe about it, you know?
Yep.
So phase 2 B vitamins are very helpful for that comp gene, really getting you to, because a lot of people have like a slow comp gene. So they're already very sluggish at metabolizing in the liver. This is why we love supporting the liver, right? With a lot of the different things that we've worked with in the past. And even things like gentle detox, like castor oil packs are very helpful to help the metabolism of hormones.
And they dilate the bile ducts. Like that
Yes.
is really the main thing you're going to see that is happening with castor oil packs.
Mm-hmm.
And we find when working with patients and in our courses, we literally are like, you got to start with this. You have to do this because so many of us have an issue with detox and it all goes with, bile production and bile flow,
Yep.
all that stuff. So this can be really helpful. And just as a side note on the castor oil packs, they're really easy just to wear to bed. We'll put in the show
Mm-hmm.
notes the ones that we like. And we also have an episode with Marisol
She's
from the
great.
company we like. She did a whole episode on it. But you can wear them to bed because it's super
Mm-hmm.
easy, but really you only need about an hour. It's about how long it's really absorbing. So if you want to just like do it, before bed and then take it off after an hour, that's fine. But if you want to sleep with it, that's what we had most of our people we work with do is sleep with it on.
Yeah, it just feel like it's a lot easier. But some people need to just test it, right? To see if
Yeah.
it gives
10
you
minutes and see how you do. I
yeah,
find that if you're not using heat with it, which this one you don't, we really don't have people react bad.
issues.
Mm-mm.
I really don't see a lot of that. Maybe
So gentle. It's
it
like the
really is.
gentlest thing you can do.
It really is. And it
Yeah.
works for so many things. She's got a great Instagram too. The Queen of the Thrones. We
Yeah.
just love her stuff. And it's a great pack and cleaner, instead of making your own. So just to kind of put phase 1 and phase 2 together, you guys, because I know this is if you're new to all this, it could be hard to wrap your head around it.
Mm-hmm.
But phase 1 estrogen metabolism, there's, certain things that you want to do. Look to see if, sulforaphane is good for you, possibly DIM is good for you. I go over all of this in the Dutch course, so depending on what your hormonal picture looks like.
Then
But
she gives you what you should do. She's
exactly.
saying, this is what your results look like. You take this.
Yes. Yes.
Exact
So
thing.
really clear. Yeah, exactly. So that's phase 1 support, right? Phase 2, complete protein sources, B vitamins, magnesium, choline. A lot of these things are very supportive at getting you to continue to clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Phase 3, this happens in the gut. So you don't necessarily see phase 3 estrogen metabolism on the Dutch test. This is why we do, no matter what hormone we're looking at, we start in the gut, to be honest, because the way that, when you make hormone, you need to break it down, right? And this is how we even work with toxins in the body. We need to clear it through these various systems in the body. And our bowel movements are a big, big factor in that. So when you're looking at a stool test, you want to see, okay, what's impacting me from not fully metabolizing or clearing this through the bile and stool. And some of those drivers can be infections in the gut, really and truly. So things like SIBO, H. pylori, opportunistic bacteria, parasites, candida, so fungal infections, right? And these are, it's very normal. Our gut is made up of various different virus and fungal and bacteria. We're made up of so many of these things, but it's when they are imbalanced, right? Too much of something is a problem. So we want to work on clearing these infections so that we can fully metabolize and get rid of that estrogen through the stool. And when we've worked with patients, and we go over all of this stuff too in detail, but when we've worked in our courses and in Beck's practice, she does this with all of her patients. But when we go over this, you really got to start backwards when you're working on hormones. You want to really dive into the gut first, especially with estrogen. Really start supporting the liver, like with these gentle practices, right? That we've talked about so much. Dive into clearing infections and start supporting your phase 1, phase 2. You want to bring that in a little bit later, depending on where you're at, because you got to be careful. If you start really pushing estrogen, but you're not pooping, you got infections, you're going to feel like crap. You will. So you really have to go about it a little bit different. And we do walk you through more of that, in the courses, because it is complex. It can be complex depending on what your picture looks like when it comes
and
to.
there's markers on the stool test that tell us if you're metabolizing estrogen in phase 3 properly. So
Yes,
we really look. This is why the testing is just so important. It just really is. And guessing is so hard. And that's why some people take something and they feel great, and some people take something they don't, because they might not be doing it in the right order. So
yeah. I do want to add one thing before we get into some really good takeaways for them, Beck.
okay.
Just some simple things, like if you can't do courses, if you can't do testing, if you can't do these things right now, I always like to simplify this. Start looking at your diet, right? Start eating low inflammatory foods, getting in lots of color, lots of complete protein sources. This is important for the metabolism of hormones, period. Like you need to fill your diet with nutrient density. You want to make sure that you're pooping. This is important. Like if you're not pooping
every day,
and good complete bowel movements, you want to start there, work on that. If you need a little help, we loved various different forms of magnesium. I mean, we've worked with everything under the sun to get patients to poop, right?
Yeah, but it's important. And it's always amazes me too, sometimes when like I was talking with Kate, who's one of the practitioners in my practice, and she said, well, we have a really sensitive patient and she's not pooping. And I said, is she taking magnesium? And she said, no. And you would think, just as for us, we just know that you've got to start with magnesium, but
so gentle.
A lot of people don't, a lot of people don't. And most people tolerate magnesium. And we typically like glycinate is a really good form because it's really absorbable. Sometimes citrate will just like make you have diarrhea.
Get you going.
Yeah, you got to be careful. But anyway, so magnesium is super important to try, and drinking more water and stuff. But if you're not pooping, that is where I would go before even adding fiber, because sometimes fiber can become an issue. Yeah.
You got to be careful, especially if you don't know what else is going on in your gut. Be careful with the fiber. I mean, get fiber from your diets, like gently, if you're eating a nutrient dense diet, you're probably getting in enough fiber, right? So just focus on that. But a lot of people will go crazy with the fiber supplementation, and that's where we see issues, blindly when you're taking that. So, you can start there with nutrient density, making sure that you're pooping, focusing on those, gentle detox methods like castor oil packs, Epsom salt baths, because this is going to help everything in the body. It's kind of that biohacking, you guys. We see it all the time, but it works if you stick with it, right? And you put these practices in every single day, so those are just some simple things you can start doing now focusing on if you can't dive into things further,
Yeah. So let's continue on that pathway. Yeah. So if you're listening and you're saying, I can't afford to work with someone, I can't afford to buy a course, any of that, I can't afford to do testing. Let's start with making sure you're pooping. So magnesium, making sure you can do something along the lines of castor oil packs. If you can't afford that, do Epsom salt baths. If you don't have a bathtub, do Epsom salt foot baths. Dry brushing can be really helpful for getting the lymphatic system involved.
I love that.
And then you can add some foods that really help with, like, bile flow and just kind of getting things moving, which is we bringing it all back to the liver and why the liver is so important with estrogen metabolism and just everything, right?
Yeah.
So
does everything.
Foods like ginger. Ginger is really good antihistamine actually as well, anti-inflammatory, and it really can be helpful with estrogen metabolism. Apple cider vinegar can be good, but if you have histamine intolerance, maybe you're not going to want to be drinking
lots of it.
Vinegar. Yeah,
Right.
It is a lower histamine vinegar, but I don't know that I'd be drinking it if I was.
Same with lemon, right? We talked about that.
Same with lemon. Yeah, getting up in the morning and having warm water with lemon in it. The reason that people do that is because it can help relax the muscles in the gut, so it can make you poop, and it also can help with getting the bile flowing and thinning out the bile too, because the bile can get thick and it's sluggish, and that can be part of the issue. So if you can't do lemon, because lemons can cause an issue for histamine, dandelion tea is a really good idea. And there's a lot of different teas too, just to support liver, detox. You'll see, but you want to find gentle ingredients in there. So dandelion and lemon, if you can tolerate lemon, it was a really warm is a great way to start your day, get you pooping, get those detox pathways assisted. Cilantro can be really helpful. Cilantro is really helpful in pulling pathogen or toxins too, but you have to. Some people actually react.
They do. I find
cilantro.
that.
Yeah.
I found that.
When I had mercury, before I detoxed mercury, I would make cilantro heavy recipes, and I would feel weird after. And then I realized later it was because of the mercury, it was pulling it. So radishes can be helpful to support that. Parsley can be really good. So anything kind of bitters. Those bitter foods can be really helpful. Coffee can be helpful, but that comes with a caveat. You have to make sure your coffee can also be high in mold and high in pesticides. So you want to make sure you're doing the right kind. We love Purity. Purity coffee is the best. They have gone through extensive processes to make sure that there are no mycotoxins, mold in the coffee, no pesticides, any of that. So we'll put a link to that. I do the brown one. What's that one called? The bad.
I think it's the liver.
It is for the liver specifically. So that's the one that I do. It's like a medium roast.
Yeah.
And just like for me, I don't do coffee on an empty stomach, and I don't do it right when I wake up. I have to wait like an hour, and I have to eat. So that's how I do it, and that's how I feel best with it. And then arugula, and I love arugula. It's so good. I mean,
craving it now.
No, we're done. Let's go make a
salad.
Yeah, but you can make an arugula salad and put some of these other things on there, but you want to probably add some protein too.
And arugula is a great for histamine back, because it's lower in histamine green for those of you that. Yeah. I mean, I know that when histamine patients want to make a smoothie, I mean, that's a great green,
because they want to you hear to put spinach and everything. Yes. Spinach is really high in oxalates too, which a lot of people with histamine issues have an issue with oxalates, and arugula is not. It is lower in oxalate. So, and same with artichokes. Artichokes can be really helpful for the liver, and also they can be an antihistamine food. So we talked about cruciferous veggies. So like broccoli sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, those types of things can all be super supportive. Yeah. Fiber like flaxseed, you can get fiber from flaxseed. And if you do this, so Krystal likes to make those Fab Four smoothies from Kelly LeVeque.
She's phenomenal.
Yeah. And you put flaxseed in there, right?
Yeah. That and hemp seeds, just a tablespoon. And that's all that I do, a day.
Yeah.
And having that
greens.
Fiber.
Yeah. So when you get flax seeds, get them whole, stick them in the refrigerator, and then take them out and grind them when you're going to use them. So, because you want them ground, you don't want the whole seed because they're hard to break down that way.
Yeah.
So, um, and what else? Okay, so then some supplements, like if you're, really you want to be focusing on getting bile flowing. So a really good supplement for that is Tudka. We like Tudka. We like the brand Cellcore, but you can't buy Cellcore's Tudka if you're not a practitioner, but you can buy Body Bio.
Yeah.
They have a Tudka too. And some people are sensitive to Tudka. So just again, test it, see how you do with it. And choline, but you can get choline in food like eggs.
Me and Beck have talked about phosphatidylcholine took
Yeah,
mine
we
this
love
morning.
that's one
Smelled
of the things.
delightful.
It's one of the things we both of us take every day is phosphatidylcholine. I take the Body Bio
I
PT.
started that one, Beck.
Oh, you
I
did?
actually do very well on it because I
Yeah.
was doing the one by Pure for those listening, and I've worked with both with patients, but I started the Body. I love that. It's
And it
great.
also has phosphatidylserine
Yes.
in it, which is really supportive to your cortisol.
Yes.
So it's good. We like that a lot.
Mhm.
You can take like N-acetylcysteine, which helps with glutathione production. Which glutathione is extremely important when you're talking anything, detoxification. That's kind of, the best things we can say.
Yeah.
If you're doing this on your own, add those foods in, try adding some form of gentle detox that we talked about. Make sure you're pooping. If you're not pooping, take the magnesium. If magnesium isn't working, Motil Pro is really good from Pure Encapsulations.
Yeah.
Iberogas can be
Mhm.
really helpful. I don't know who makes Iberogas, but I've seen it. I think
It's on.
on.
Yeah. I don't know it offhand either, but I've used it a lot.
Yeah. So Iberogas it's an adaptogen for the gut. So an adaptogenic herbs, what they do is they adapt to the situation. So if you're not pooping, they can help with that. If you're going diarrhea, they can help with that. They
Help with that.
adapt. So whatever you
Great.
need. Yeah. And we've seen people do really well in that. So can you think of any others? Milk thistle can be really
Yeah.
good
We
for the
touched
liver.
we touched on DIM, we touched on sulforaphane. No, you hit the big guys. I think they're gonna love this, and you guys will get a lot out of that if you start incorporating some of these things. Just again with hormones in going back on DIM and sulforaphane, you just kind of want to know what your picture looks like. Don't blindly supplement with those things until you know
Especially
like.
DIM.
Yes.
I think we've seen the most reaction. And I think we said this on maybe one of our latest episodes, but in a lot of people's hormone blends that they are telling everyone to take, DIM's in there, and I just don't get that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How's
So
the kids doing? Let's just touch base on that a little bit. How's your kids doing?
Okay. So we started public school this year. This is the first year the boys have done that. So they've all always gone to the same school together. And so now they're taking the bus for the first time. And Levi and Jake have each other for that. And Liam's going by himself. And it's dark when we go to school. It's just still dark out. And he's really struggling with getting on the bus. And he's so sweet. He doesn't make a big thing of it, but he gets sad. And he said to me, Mom, I just like to sit alone on the bus because I'm trying not to cry. That literally killed me. So
Literally.
I've been struggling with, do I make him take the bus or do I take him to school? But I really can't take him to school because then I have to come back for the other two. And I also think it's important for him to feel that feeling of discomfort and be able to work through that. And I believe that he can, and he is working through it. So that's kind of what we've been, what's been going on over here. But overall, they love it. They really like the school. They like that they're not wearing uniforms. They've always worn uniforms.
I know.
They love that. They can,
That's so
express
fun.
themselves and all that. And we have, we're lucky we're in a good school system here. But yeah, that's kind of how school's been going. We're definitely adjusting to getting up at 5:30 because we slept till like 7:30 or 8 sometimes in the summer.
Yes.
It's hard, but the other two get to sleep till like They get up at 7:45 because their school they don't have to be at the bus stop till 8:30.
It's so nice. Lucky ducks, right?
I know. I'm like, I've had a whole day
I
already
know.
by the time you two get up.
It's so true. It is kind of nice once you get back into that routine and you're like, okay, now I'm showered, I'm ready, I'm okay. And it's 9. Take the,
Mm-hmm.
it's great. I know. Declan this year, he's in 4th. So he can actually go to the bus stop by himself now. And he's like, Mom, you don't need to go with me. All right. Like, so it's the
Oh,
opposite end of this. I'm like, I'm going with you, man. I'm going to miss you all day, And he's
yeah.
like, let me just go and I'll hang with my cousin. Cause Emma, his cousin, lives on the same street, as us. And so it's just so funny, his independence and wanting that. And I'm like holding on.
Would he hug you if you were at the bus
Oh
stop with
yeah.
him?
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll hug me, but he definitely like, cause I kiss attack my kids. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I love you. Kiss. And he's like, Mom, like, don't, I'm like, really? Really? No more kisses in front of
Yeah, Jake is doing that. So Jake's 14 now, but
Yeah.
Levi, who's 11, he is not.
He doesn't
He
care.
wants me to walk with him, and he's like, Levi's just naturally cool. Like he just has like
He really
swagger.
is.
He's just cool, and he doesn't care. And that's one of the reasons he is, because he doesn't care what people think.
Yes.
He's like,
yes.
You're my mom, and I love you, and I'm not embarrassed. I'm like, let's keep that attitude going through your teens.
And when you bring all your girlfriends home, man. It's so funny. But yeah, they're doing great. Savannah has to get up a lot earlier than Deck. Deck doesn't start school until later, but she's out the door by 6. No, 6:50. She's out the door by that time. Yeah. So
we're
weird.
at the bus stop by 6:15. I'm telling you, it's dark. I think that being dark out is part of the problem. He doesn't like that. It's like, weird for him. So
yeah.
So Krystal told me about this pillow. I think we talked about this also, but I'm going to say it again. It's called the Sleep Crown, right?
Okay. Did you get it? You didn't get it yet.
I did. No, I didn't get it. But so this company is like a little company that has such a high demand. If you look on their Instagram and you click their bio, you're going to see they don't have any pillows in stock.
They don't.
It's like coming this date because they have to keep restocking, and then they'll be like, make sure you set your calendar. I literally set an alarm. I missed the first one because I was busy, and I went later on that day to do it, and they were sold out again.
Yes.
Then I finally this week got there, as soon as my alarm went off, I went and I got it, and I was so excited. So it's a pillow, because Krystal and I are such high maintenance sleepers that you put over your eye covers. I wear
yes.
I like
you put it over your eyes, and it wraps around and covers your ears. So it's even noise proof, you guys. So it's noise proof, but it has that feeling, what are those the weighted blankets, but it's not, because it gives you that just hug, but you can still breathe out of your nose and out of your mouth. Cause I always slept with a pillow. With a pillow over my head,
full-blown pillow on her head.
And so this is like the most luxurious pillow. Oh, I can't even. I just love it.
Like a hug for the top of your head.
It is.
We again are not associated with the company at all. We just like this stuff. We're just we telling you what we like. But
so if you need help with sleep, because I've even seen a lot of the reviews from them, because there's certain people that I follow that was talking about pillow. And if you struggle with things like insomnia, or you have a snoring partner, or you got to find different ways to help your sleep. So I've noticed it's helped me. And I've always been a pretty good sleeper. I mean, last week on the podcast, I talked about how I struggled a little bit with sleep when I was going through my hormone stuff, but I sleep pretty good. But it's because I put all these things in place to sleep good, a noise machine, so anyways, we wanted to share these pillows with you guys because it's hysterical. We literally set our alarm for when they went live, both of us. I'm like, Beck, you got to get this pillow. Set your alarm. And I mean, they're a little pricey, but I don't screw around with sleep.
But they'll probably last forever. I mean, sometimes there's no price tag on sleep. I can tell you that.
No, and it's so funny because I always say to people, I'm like, some people buy shoes and purses. I buy health stuff and supplements. That's
Yeah,
what I spend my money
true.
on, you know? It's so
True.
true.
And
We all have our
food.
thing.
I'll
And
spend
food.
money on the best quality food, but I won't.
Yes.
I'm like, I have to think about it if you want me to buy something else that I'm like,
100%. I
yeah.
know. It's so fun. Well, this was a great episode. I loved it. It was fun.
And I didn't get to say it because we went into something else, but you did such a wonderful job explaining estrogen metabolism,
Oh, good,
which you always do.
I know when we were looking through, because we get so many questions, we were looking through the different ones that we felt could apply to a lot of people too, you know.
Yeah.
That's why
And we love questions. We love these. If
Yes.
you guys like these episodes, let
Mhm.
us know. Tell
Let
us
us know.
a great way to let us know would be to leave a review, letting us
Really
know.
appreciate it.
But you can also DM us on our Health
Mhm.
Babes Instagram
Yep.
or Health Babes.
Yep. Health
Oh,
Babes.
forget I know remember our email.
The
What's
Health Babes. It's the Health Babes, our Instagram.
No, I know our Instagram, but our
Oh.
email, if you want to send it, or
contact@healthbabes.com.
you know what the best thing to do is we have our Health Babes newsletter, reply to that and tell
Yeah,
us
that's
like a
good.
question. If you have a question you want us to answer on air,
Yeah.
reply to that, or because we're more likely to see that than anything else.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts. And I know like all the emails and all the things, it gets to be a lot. So that's probably the easiest places.
But look for question boxes too, because we put
Yeah.
things up and that's where we pulled all these from. So thank you guys for leaving your questions and thank you guys for listening today. And we hope you have a great day.
We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, if you can pop over and leave a review, that would be awesome. You can also find us over at healthbabes.com, where you can find our courses, our latest book. We also are on Instagram at The Health Babes, at Dr. Becky Campbell, or at Dr. Krystal Hohn. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.